The sun was just rising over the thick alien jungle. Orange lights spilled through the huge blue leaves as the world slowly woke up. Strange birds cried from the treetops. Small animals ran across the mossy ground, but deep inside this jungle, a man named Jack was already awake. He wasn't from this world. He was human, one of the few survivors of a crashed explorer ship. For the last 21 days, he had been living alone, hunting, building traps, and hiding from predators. His food was running low. So last night, Jack set a strong net made of vines tied between two trees. It was meant to catch something big, something with meat. When his small tracker beeped, Jack jumped to his feet. Finally, he whispered. He picked up his energy stick and moved quickly through the trees. The signal was strong. Something had been caught. But when he reached the trap, Jack froze. It wasn't a beast. It was a girl. She was tangled in the vines, struggling, her silver skin glowing in the early sunlight. Her large eyes were wild with fear. Thin arms pulled at the ropes, and her legs kicked helplessly. She was small, maybe 5 feet tall, but clearly not human. Her ears were long and sharp. Strange tattoos glowed softly across her neck and arms. She had no shoes. Her clothes were torn. She looked up and saw him, and screamed. It was a sound full of terror. She twisted harder, trying to escape, speaking fast in a language Jack didn't understand. Her voice cracked with panic. Jack raised both hands slowly, trying to calm her. Hey, it's okay. I didn't mean to trap you, he said gently. I thought you were an animal, I swear. But she didn't understand. She screamed again, eyes wide. Then she did something Jack didn't expect. She opened her mouth and bit one of the vines holding her. Her teeth were sharp. Blood ran from her lip, but she didn't stop. Jack moved closer. Please, stop. You're going to hurt yourself. He reached out to help untie her, but the girl panicked and swung her foot, kicking him in the chest. Jack stumbled back. She thought he was going to eat her. Jack realized it in that moment. Her fear wasn't just because she was caught at, was because of him. He tried again, softer this time. Look, I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to let you go. But she was already crying. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she struggled one last time, and then collapsed in the net, her body too weak to keep fighting. She fainted. Jack stared at her for a moment. His heart was pounding. Who was she? Where did she come from? Was she part of a tribe? A runaway prisoner? He didn't know. But what he did know was this. She needed help. Jack pulled out his blade and cut the ropes gently. The girl's body fell into his arms, light as air. She was shaking, skin cold to the touch. Her breathing was fast and shallow. He wrapped her in his jacket and lifted her up as he walked back toward his camp. He spoke to her quietly, even though she couldn't hear him. I didn't mean to catch you, he said, but maybe it wasn't a mistake. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Her ribs were showing. Her hands were dirty and bruised. She had been running from something, or someone. When they reached the camp, a small shelter made of branches and metal scraps, Jack laid her down gently on a soft pile of leaves. He opened a food pack, warmed it, and placed it near her nose. Maybe the smell would wake her instead. She twitched and whimpered, turning away like she expected to be hit. Jack sighed. What happened to you? He whispered. For the next hour, he watched over her. He cleaned her cuts. He placed a water bottle beside her lips. She was too weak to drink. So he dipped a cloth in the water and gently pressed it to her lips. The girl stirred. Her eyes fluttered open. She stared at him. Jack smiled. You're safe. But her body tensed. She sat up slowly, eyes wide with terror. Her mouth moved. She whispered something. Jack activated his old translator device and held it out. She repeated the words again. Weakly. The translator spoke in a flat voice. Is this where you eat me? Jack blinked, she thought. He was keeping her to cook her. He shook his head quickly. No, no, not at all. He said, You're safe. I won't hurt you. She didn't believe him. Her hands shook. Her whole body was curled up like a cornered animal. She pushed the food away. Jack took a bite of the same food pack. He chewed it slowly, then held the rest out to her. She stared at him, and then, with trembling fingers, she took the food. She ate one small bite, then another. And suddenly, she was eating like she hadn't tasted food in weeks. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she finished the pack. Jack sat beside her quietly. In that moment, the silence was louder than any jungle noise. He had caught something by mistake. But maybe, just maybe, she was meant to be found. The alien girl sat in a corner of Jack's small shelter, her arms wrapped tightly around her knees. Her silver skin shimmered faintly in the dim jungle light that filtered through the leaves above. Her eyes, wide and full of fear, never left him. Not even for a second. Jack moved slowly, carefully. He didn't want to scare her any more than she already was. He had seen fear before. He had faced monsters in the wild. He had run from enemy drones. But this fear was different. This was the fear of someone who thought death was coming soon, and it broke something inside him. He heated another food pack, trying again to offer her something warm. The smell of the stew filled the air. Even Jack's own stomach growled. But the girl didn't move. He took a few steps closer and gently placed the food beside her on a flat stone. It's for you, he said softly. Eat, please. She didn't touch it. She just stared at him with those glowing, tear-filled eyes. Then, very slowly, she shook her head. Jack sighed. You need strength, he said. You're too weak. You fainted earlier, remember? Still, she said nothing. Jack tried another way. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his small handheld translator. He powered it on and slid it across the ground toward her. The girl eyed the device. After a long pause, she picked it up and pressed the button. Her voice came out quiet, shaky. She said something in her alien language, and the device translated, Is this the last meal before death? Jack froze. He stared at her. What? She repeated herself, slower this time. The translator repeated, Do you feed me before you eat me? Jack's heart dropped, so that was it. That's why she wouldn't eat. She believed he was fattening her up, preparing her for death, like she was livestock. It wasn't just fear, it was trauma. Deep, old trauma. Jack knelt down a few feet from her and looked directly into her eyes. I am not going to hurt you, he said slowly. Not now. Not ever. She stared at him, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Jack opened a food pack for himself. Watch me, he said. He took a bite, chewed, swallowed. See? He smiled. It's safe. I'm eating it too. She blinked. Then, after a long silence, she reached out with shaky fingers. She picked up the food Jack had placed earlier. She sniffed it. She looked at Jack again, as if asking silently, Are you sure? Jack nodded. She took a small bite. Her body tensed. She froze, waiting. Maybe thinking she'd be poisoned. But nothing happened. Then came the second bite. Then the third. Within minutes, she had eaten the whole thing. And after that, she burst into tears again, but this time, they weren't tears of terror. They were tears of hunger, of sadness, of relief. Jack didn't say a word. He just let her cry. Later, he handed her his canteen of water. She drank with small sips, still keeping one eye on him at all times. Jack sat back against the wall, giving her space. He watched the jungle through a hole in the shelter wall. She finished drinking and wiped her face. Then she pointed to herself. V. Leah, she said, slowly. Jack turned his head. Velia? He repeated. She nodded once. Then she pointed to him, eyes questioning. Jack, he said, smiling gently. My name is Jack. Jack, she echoed softly. It was the first peaceful moment they'd shared, but it didn't last long. That night, as the jungle grew darker and the air colder, Jack gave her a blanket. She hesitated to take it at first, but then slowly wrapped it around herself. He laid on his side across the shelter, letting her have the space near the fire. Jack whispered before closing his eyes, You're safe now, Velia. She didn't answer, but when Jack turned to glance at her a few minutes later, he saw something unexpected. She had curled up with the blanket, but her eyes were still wide open. She hadn't slept at all. In the silence of the night, the alien girl stayed awake, heart pounding. Even though her stomach was full and the human hadn't harmed her, her mind couldn't stop whispering the old fear. What if he's just waiting for her to sleep? Back on the far side of the jungle, far beyond Jack's camp, a tracking beacon blinked. Someone or something was looking for her, and they were getting closer. The first morning light touched the jungle leaves, soft and golden. Birds chirped. Trees creaked in the gentle wind. Jack slowly opened his eyes and stretched his arms. His back hurt from sleeping on the rough floor of the shelter. Then he looked toward the corner. His heart froze. She was gone. The blanket lay neatly folded, and the empty food packet sat untouched beside it. The canteen had been set back exactly where he'd placed it last night. But Velia, the alien girl, was not there. Jack stood up fast, grabbed his scanner, and ran outside the shelter. The ground outside still held signs of her movement. Tiny footprints, a broken vine, a crushed leaf. He followed them quickly into the jungle. Velia, he shouted, though he knew she probably wouldn't answer. The trail led to the river, but then disappeared into the thick mud and water. No more tracks. No clue where she went. He clenched his fists. Why would she run? He whispered. After everything. But deep down, he knew why. She still didn't trust him. To her, he was just another possible threat. Another human with kind eyes and dangerous hands. Maybe she'd been treated nicely before, only to be betrayed later. Maybe she thought leaving was safer than staying. Still, Jack couldn't help but feel a sharp pain in his chest. He turned back toward the shelter, but something inside told him not to give up, so he waited. He built the fire again, made another food pack, left the blanket out. He waited all day, and when the sun started to go down behind the tall jungle trees, he heard it. A soft crunch of leaves, then another. Jack turned. Slowly, there she was. Velia. Her clothes were wet. Her legs scratched, her arms covered in small cuts. Her hair was tangled with bits of leaf and twigs. But her eyes were filled with something new. Shame. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She didn't hide. She stepped forward and stopped a few feet away from Jack. I'm sorry, she said in a whisper. Jack's translator buzzed in his pocket and repeated the words. He blinked. You came back, he said, almost in disbelief. She nodded. Her voice shook. I tried to go. I thought it was safer. But the jungle, it's too dangerous. I was cold. I was hunted. Jack stepped forward. Concerned. By what? Velia hesitated, then lowered her eyes. I don't know. I didn't see them, but I felt, watched. I heard something following me. Jack clenched his jaw. The jungle was full of creatures, some natural, others artificial. But what scared him more was the possibility that someone else had detected her, a drone, a bounty hunter, or something worse. He looked at her again. You should have stayed, he said. Not with anger, but with worry. I thought you would sell me, she admitted. Jack shook his head. I'd never do that. Never. Velia looked at him, her expression softening. He held out the food he had warmed earlier. Still warm, he said. She reached for it with trembling hands and sat down by the fire. This time, she didn't hesitate to eat. She took each bite slowly, but she didn't stop. Jack watched her in silence, thinking about everything she must have gone through before arriving in his trap. When she finished, she whispered, "Why are you helping me?" Jack didn't answer right away. He stared into the flames. "Because someone should have helped you long ago," he finally said. Velia lowered her eyes. "Others didn't." Jack nodded. "Well, I'm not others." For a long moment, there was only the sound of the fire crackling and the jungle whispering outside. Then Velia did something unexpected. She moved closer to him, not too close, just a few inches. But it was the first time she moved toward him instead of away. "I didn't want to trust you," she whispered, "but you gave me food, and warmth, and freedom." "You can leave any time," Jack replied. "I won't stop you, but if you stay, you're safe with me." She gave a small nod. "Then I will stay." He looked at her. "It's just one condition," he said, half smiling. "No more running off into the jungle. Deal?" She blinked, confused. "Deal? It means agreement, promise." She paused, then copied his smile. "Deal?" Jack laughed lightly. It was the first time he'd smiled in days. The two sat together by the fire. Two souls from different worlds. One had no home, and the other had no one. Now, maybe they had each other, but neither of them knew that far across the jungle. A red light blinked silently on a fallen piece of Velia's torn clothing. A tracking beacon. Someone had found her trail, and they were coming. The jungle was quiet. To quiet, Jack sat near the shelter's fire pit, sharpening a metal spear he had crafted from broken parts of the crashed ship. He glanced sideways every few seconds, not at the trees, but at Velia. She was sitting nearby, her legs crossed under her blanket, carefully repeating words from the translator screen. Her eyes focused, her lips moved softly. She was trying to learn English. Jack never expected her to be so fast. Just 3 days ago, she thought he was going to eat her. Now, she was sitting 10 feet from him, learning his language by copying the screen's words and sneaking looks at his face when she wanted to check if she said it right. He didn't say anything at first. He didn't want to break her rhythm, but after the 5th word, she spoke without the translator. "You. Safe," she said slowly. Pointing to him, Jack looked up, surprised. He nodded. "Yes, safe." She smiled tiny, quick, but real. Then she pointed to herself. "Me, Velia, also safe." Jack chuckled. "Yes, Velia, you're safe too." She nodded, then looked down. Her fingers played with the edge of the blanket. Jack could tell she wanted to say more. She looked up again, more serious now. "I chew. Hunt me." He frowned. "What?" She tried again, struggling with the sentence. "You, like other humans, who hunt alien girls like me." Jack sat down beside her slowly, making sure not to scare her. "No," he said firmly. "I don't hunt people. Not ever." She stared at him. "Then why? Save me." Jack paused. It wasn't easy to explain. "I was alone," he said finally. "You were alone too. I thought, maybe we could survive together." Velia looked away. Her hands trembled slightly. "Together," she whispered, testing the word on her tongue. They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled between them. Jack finally said, "You're learning fast." Velia's head turned quickly. I must, she said. He raised a brow. Why? She hesitated, then pointed at the translator. This can break, she said. If I not learn, we cannot talk. And if danger comes? I want to warn you. Jack blinked. He wasn't expecting that. You want to protect me? She looked him in the eyes. You protected me first. A strange feeling settled in Jack's chest. No one had ever looked at him like that before. Not with fear, not with hunger, but with loyalty. He looked back at her. We protect each other then. She nodded slowly. Deal, she said again. Jack smiled. Deal? That night, something changed between them. They ate together no longer. On opposite sides of the camp, Valya asked questions: what stars were, why the sky was black, what jacket meant. Jack answered patiently, sometimes drawing in the dirt to explain. When he showed her a picture of Earth on his old datapad, her eyes grew wide. So blue, she whispered. Is it real? Yes, Jack said. It's home. She looked up at him. Do you miss it? Jack paused. Every day. Valya tilted her head. Then, why not leave? Jack laughed quietly. If I had a working ship, I would. She frowned. You can't go home. No, he said, his voice heavy. I'm stuck here. She looked down again, and her voice became softer. Like me. Jack nodded slowly. Yes, like you. They didn't say anything after that. But as the stars lit up the sky, Jack noticed something. Valya didn't curl into the corner of the shelter that night. She sat beside him, close enough that their arms nearly touched. She didn't ask for permission. She just stayed, and Jack didn't move away. As they lay under the shelter's roof of branches and metal, Valya turned to him and asked quietly, Can I ask something strange? Jack opened one eye. Sure, she paused, then asked the question, Will you protect me from your own kind? Jack didn't answer immediately. The question struck deeper than he expected. His own kind, humans, the same species that left him behind when his ship crashed. The same kind that treated alien species like Valya as property. The kind that would pay money to capture someone like her. Or worse, he turned to her slowly. Her eyes were glowing in the moonlight. Her face was calm, but full of fear behind her brave words. Yes, he said softly, even from my own kind, I promise. She blinked, surprised. Why? She whispered, because, Jack said, not all humans are the same. And neither are all aliens. She didn't say anything. She leaned her head gently against his shoulder. Jack didn't move, and in that moment, a bond formed stronger than words. But they didn't know that miles away, a red light blinked again on the jungle floor. A soldier in black armor picked up the tiny tracker and grinned. She's alive, he whispered into his comm, and she's not alone. Morning came with silence. No birds, no insects. No wind. Jack noticed it first. As he stepped outside the shelter, he looked up and scanned the tree canopy. Everything was too still. The jungle wasn't asleep, was holding its breath. Inside, the shelter of Valya was still resting, her face peaceful for once. Her head lay gently on the blanket she now called her own. Jack didn't want to wake her, but something was wrong. He opened his portable scanner, small, old device barely working, and checked for heat signals. There it was, red dots. 5 of them, moving slowly. Getting closer. Foot patrol, Jack whispered. They weren't animals. They weren't random wanderers. They were humans. Hunters. Jack's heart started beating faster. He rushed back inside the shelter, knelt beside Valya, and gently shook her shoulder. Valya, he said, voice low but urgent. Wake up. Now. She stirred, rubbing her eyes. What is it? We don't have time, he said. People are coming. human soldiers. They're tracking you. She sat up fast, her body stiff with fear. You told them? Jack looked at her, hurt. No. Never. But they found the tracker piece you dropped. They're closing in. Velia's eyes filled with panic. They will take me. Sell me. Cut. Me. Jack grabbed a pack of food, 2 water bottles, and his knife. Not if I stop them. You can't fight them, she whispered. They're too many. Jack gave a small, bitter smile. I've done worse. He handed her the backpack. When I give the signal, run into the jungle. Follow the red path markings on the trees. I'll find you. No. She shook her head quickly. We run together. Jack stood and looked out through a small hole in the shelter wall. The red dots were much closer now. If we both run, they'll shoot you. They won't care. If I distract them, you'll get away. Velia grabbed his arm, her voice trembling. What would you do? This, for me. Jack turned slowly and looked her in the eyes, 'cause they're not my people anymore. She didn't understand, but she saw the truth in his face. He wasn't just protecting her. Anymore, he had chosen her. 10 minutes later, the mercenary squad reached the clearing. They were armored, heavy boots, pulse rifles, green visors that glowed. All of them had the same badge on their chest, Praxcorp. A company that bought and sold alien tech, and sometimes alien life. Their leader stepped forward and scanned the area. Human life detected. His visor announced. Come out, pilot, he shouted. We detected alien traces. Just hand it over and we'll let you walk. Jack stepped out slowly, hands raised, no weapon. No threat. But his voice was calm. I live alone. Crashed here weeks ago. No alien here. The leader laughed. Really? Then what's this? He held up a shard of Velia's old collar. It still glowed faintly with alien energy. She escaped. Jack replied, I found her. Yes. But she's gone now. Left days ago. Another soldier stepped forward. Scan says fresh heat imprint inside that shelter. The leader raised his weapon. Move. Jack stepped aside. Heart pounding, they entered the shelter, but it was empty. Velia was gone, just like they planned. The leader turned back. Where did she go? Jack shrugged. You're too late. One of the soldiers moved closer and shoved. Jack hard. You're lying. I'm not. Jack said, barely holding back anger. The leader looked at him for a long moment, then gave a cruel smile. Fine, if we can't take the girl, we'll take you. We're helping her. Jack didn't wait. He reached behind his back and triggered a hidden device on his belt. Boom. A smoke charge exploded from under the shelter, filling the air with thick, white fog. Down. Someone yelled, but Jack was already gone, vanishing into the jungle. Meanwhile, Velia ran. She ran with all her strength. Following the red marks Jack had drawn on the trees with berry dye. Her heart beat so fast she felt dizzy. But she didn't stop. She thought of Jack behind her, fighting, distracting, risking everything. For her, suddenly, she stopped. She turned around and looked back into the misty trees. No, she whispered. She dropped the pack and ran back. Jack didn't make it far before they caught him. He was tough, but they were trained soldiers. A stun blast hit his shoulder, dropping him to the ground. One soldier moved forward. Raising a weapon, end him, the leader ordered. But before the shot came, something fast and silver leaped from the trees. It was Velya. She tackled the soldier with strength Jack didn't think she had. Her glowing tattoos lit up like fire, and she released a pulse of light that knocked 2 men off their feet. Jack shouted, Velia, no, you'll burn yourself out. But she stood between him and the soldiers, arms wide, eyes glowing. The leader stared at her. You'd protect a human. Velia growled, her voice sharp. "He protected me first." And behind her, Jack stood up again, bloody but alive. He raised his weapon, and this time, T wasn't alone. They were two, but together. They were not afraid. The sun had long disappeared, and night settled deep over the jungle. The stars above blinked through cracks in the thick canopy. Everything was quiet again, but this time, it wasn't peaceful. Smoke drifted from the trees. Burned vines, shattered equipment, and empty bullet shells lay scattered where the fight had taken place. The mercenaries had retreated wounded, confused, and humiliated. But they had left behind something worse than their weapons. Jackie stumbled through the dark forest, his arm hanging limp. Blood soaked his sleeve and his leg dragged as he walked. His vision blurred. His breathing was heavy. Each step felt like fire crawling through his body. Behind him, Velia supported his side with her thin arms. Her face was pale, and her glowing. Tattoos had dimmed since the pulse she used to save him. "You shouldn't have come back." Jack whispered through clenched teeth. "You shouldn't have lied for me," she replied, her voice soft. They finally reached the small cave Jack had, once used for shelter during a storm. Velia helped him lie down on a bed of leaves and moss. He winced. "Should've. Let me distract them." Velia knelt beside him. "You would have died." Jack looked at her, weak, but still smiling. "And now, we both might." She pulled back his sleeve, her hands shaking. A deep burn cut across his upper arm where the stun blast had hit him at close range. It had melted part of his skin. "I need to clean this," she said, voice trembling. Jack closed his eyes. No supplies left. Velia looked down at her hands. There was one thing she could still do. She had never done it fully before. Kind only used it in the most desperate times. It was dangerous and painful. But Jack had already risked his life for her more than once. She took a deep breath and placed both hands gently over his wound. Jack groaned in pain, his eyes flying open. "Velia, what are you?" A soft blue light began to shine from her fingers. The tattoos on her arms lit up like stars, and her body trembled. Her breathing quickened. Her teeth clenched. Her own skin began to glow, veins flickering like wires burning from inside. Jack gasped as the pain in his arm slowly faded. The wound closed. The bleeding stopped. The heat cooled. And then Velia collapsed beside him. Velia Jack caught her, shaking her gently. "Talk to me." She opened her eyes slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It took too much." Jack held her close, guilt tightening in his chest. "Why would you do that?" She smiled faintly. "Because you're all I have." He didn't know what to say. For once, the man who always had a plan, always had a backup, was speechless. She had given a part of her life energy to save his. She had burned herself for him, just like he had risked everything for her. That wasn't survival anymore. That was connection. That was something deeper, something human, something alien, something both. Hours passed. Velia slowly regained her strength, but her skin still glowed dimly. She stayed curled beside him in the cave, listening to his heartbeat. Jack held her hand without even thinking. Neither of them said a word. They didn't need to. Later, when the fire he built crackled gently beside them, Jack finally broke the silence. "You said you'd warn me if danger came, remember?" Velia nodded weakly. "You didn't warn me," he said with a smile. "You came back and fought." She looked up at him. "I didn't want to run anymore." Jack leaned back. "Guess neither of us is good at running." Velia rested her head on his shoulder. "Maybe we stop running together." He glanced down at her, eyebrows raised. "That sounds like a deal." She smiled. "Deal." They both laughed softly, just enough to forget the pain for a moment. Outside the cave, a pair of yellow eyes blinked in the darkness. Not human. Not even from Velia's kind. Something else had noticed the explosion, and the light, and the strange bond forming between predator and prey. Man and alien. Something ancient, and it was curious. Back in the cave, Jack shifted closer to the fire. "You should rest," he said, pulling a blanket over Velia's shoulders. "I feel warm," she whispered. "Safe. You are," he said quietly. "With me, you always will be." Her fingers curled around his shirt, holding it gently as sleep overtook her. Jack stayed awake a little longer. He listened to the forest, to the heartbeat next to him, to the stillness between two lives that should have never met. And he smiled to himself. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The morning fog was heavy-told. Cold air swept through the jungle like ghostly hands. Birds were quiet. No wind rustled the leaves. Only the sound of footsteps, heavy, deliberate, broke the silence. They were coming. Jack knew it before he even opened his eyes. The low hum of scanners, the clicking of boots, the mechanical whisper of Praxcorp drones cutting through the trees. He sat up in the cave, his wounded shoulder stiff but healing. The night had been peaceful. For once, he and Velia had shared sleep, not in fear, but in trust. Her head rested on his chest, her breath soft, her fingers still curled into the edge of his jacket. But now, peace was over. "Velia," he whispered. She stirred. "What is it?" "They found us." Her eyes opened instantly. "They came back." Jack nodded slowly. "This time, they're not going to ask questions. They want you. And they'll kill anything in their way." Velia sat up, pale and silent. The last time she faced them, she had barely escaped. But now, she was weaker from the healing. And Jack wasn't fully recovered either. She looked into his eyes. "Then I'll run." "No," Jack said, standing. "This time, I don't." "Want you to run?" Velia blinked. "Then what do we do?" Jack opened the secret box hidden behind the stone wall. A pulse flare. One smoke bomb, a short-range blaster with only 2 charges, the small transmitter that still worked. He picked up the transmitter. "I sent a signal," he said. "To warn them we're not giving up." "To who?" Velia asked. "To them," Jack said, pointing to the trees, "to anyone watching. Anyone who still believes humans and aliens can live without fear." Velia frowned. "No one will come." Jack looked at her. "Then I'll stand alone," he said. Minutes later, the jungle clearing near the cave lit up with red scanner lines. 6 mercenaries in full armor entered the area. Their leader, the same man from before, marched at the front. Visor down, weapon ready. "She's in there," he growled. "Survivor 2. Bring them both." Before they could move, a voice called out from the trees. "Stop." They turned. Jack stepped out slowly. No armor, no mask. Just one man, dirty, bruised, tired, but standing tall. "You want her?" "Say," he said, eyes sharp. "You go through me." The leader laughed. "You." "One broken pilot." Jack didn't smile. "I've fought harder men," he said. "And I have nothing left to lose." The leader raised his rifle. Wrong answer. But before the trigger, Velia stepped beside Jack. Her hands glowed faintly. Her tattoos shimmered with light again. Not full strength, but enough. She looked at the soldiers. "I am not a weapon," she said in clear, careful English. "I am not for sale. I am not prey." The soldiers hesitated. No one expected her to speak. No one expected her to stand beside a human. The leader barked. "Shoot them both." The first soldier raised his rifle but never fired. A huge tree root burst from the ground and wrapped around his leg, yanking him into the air. The second soldier was knocked back by a pulse wave from above. 3 glowing jungle beasts dropped from the canopy, growling, defending Velia. Jack blinked in shock. What? Velia didn't look surprised. They watched last time, she whispered. They remember who helped me. The jungle had chosen its side. The mercenaries panicked. Taran, the others, fired blindly. But the jungle moved like a living shield, roots twisting, vines striking like whips. Wild creatures circling. Jack and Velia stood in the center. Untouched. The leader tried to run. Jack stepped forward, grabbing the last charge in his blaster. He aimed it at the ground in front of the fleeing man. Boom. A flash of smoke blinded the area, forcing everyone to fall back. When the fog cleared, the mercenaries were gone, dragged, defeated, or simply fleeing into the trees. Only Jack and Velia remained. An hour passed before the danger faded. The jungle returned to silence. Jack slumped to the ground, exhausted. Velia knelt beside him. You stood for me, she said softly. You came back for me. He replied. They were both shaking, but smiling. She reached out and touched his cheek. You're not like them. Your kind left you. But you chose me. Jack took her hand and kissed it gently. I didn't lose a home, he whispered. I found one. She leaned into him. I thought humans were monsters, she said. But maybe I met the last good one. Jack chuckled. Then I'll stay that way. Later, under the stars, Velia asked a question she'd never dared. Before, do I still have to leave? Jack looked at her, confused. Why would you leave? She hesitated. 'Cause I thought. Maybe you don't want to live your life hiding in the jungle. With someone like me? Jack leaned closer. You're not someone like anything, he said. You're Velia. She smiled, brighter than any star above them. And I want to be wherever you are. From that day, Jack and Velia built a new life together, hidden from the eyes of greedy men, safe among the trees and creatures who remembered kindness. No longer running, no longer hunted. Together, they were stronger than Thur. They were stronger than any army, and in a world that once feared what was different, they proved that love could grow in the most unexpected places.